This is Canada Reads American Style, featuring two friends who love Canada Reads and Canadian literature. Welcome our host Rebecca from Michigan and Tara from Ontario.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Canada Reads American Style. I'm Tara and I'm here with my partner Rebecca. Hello, Rebecca.
Hello, Tara. How are you today?
I'm okay. How are you doing?
Same
Yep.
thing.
Hanging in.
We both have kind of coughs that we are trying to, get over, I guess.
Yep. Smother a little bit.
Yeah.
But we are here because it is almost the end of 2025 and it has now become an annual thing. Yeah. I don't know how many years we've been doing it, to do a reading wrap up of our reading years.
But what I like is you had a different idea for this year, which I really, really like, because usually we talk about like our top, like 5 books or
5,
something like
10,
that. Yeah. And we're just trying to make it more interesting for us and for you as listeners. So I'll let you tell them what your idea was. I love it.
Yeah. So instead of listing off our favorite books of the year, we have decided to answer little questions like I almost like our superlatives, like our favorite book of the year, or no, not our favorite book, favorite nonfiction, favorite fictional character, such like this. So over the last few months, we have been gathering as we think of them and throwing these little questions into a little folder, and we're going to go through and answer them now. We have not discussed this ourselves, so we have no idea what the other person's answering.
Yeah.
And this was super fun. Was more work than
Yes.
just listing our favorite books, I will say.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was kind of kicking myself this morning as I was going through it. I'm like, oh my God, this is so much more work than just like my favorite 5 books were. But
Yeah.
it was fun. It was fun going through my books and thinking of the answers. So,
Yeah.
shall I start us off?
Yes.
Okay. So, our favorite nonfiction title. You go.
I know that everyone is expecting me to say that it's Adam Schultz's book, his latest one, but I'm actually going to, which it is. I mean, I just, as everybody knows, I love Adam Schultz, but I wanted to just be a little different so that you weren't sitting here going like, ho hum, we already know you're going to say Adam Schultz.
You can have a
So,
tie.
okay, I'm not even going to do a tie. I'm going to
Okay.
I'm going to go rogue here. It is Why Fish Don't Exist, because when I read that book, it was one I never would have picked up in a million years, but our good friend Jen, she wanted a buddy read some nonfiction, and so she said that I could pick the book, but we had a list of, I can't remember what it's like the Women's Prize or something. They had a list of nonfiction. And so when I looked at it, I thought, Why Fish Exist? That seems so odd. Like, what is that? And I can only tell you that if you haven't read it, read it, because it's so bizarrely fascinating on so many different levels. And I also tell people when I recommend it, I always say, don't read up a lot about the book in advance, because the surprises along the way are part of the fun of reading it. And you read it as well. And
I
I think
did.
you liked it, didn't
I
you?
loved it.
Yeah.
It was close to being my choice, except I thought you might bring it. So I'm like, I'm going to leave it just in case.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
then what is yours?
Okay, I am not going rogue. I, of course, did a tie because sometimes I just can't decide.
Yeah.
So I have obviously 2. The first is called And a Dog Called Fig, Solitude Connection, The Writing Life by Helen Humphreys. Of course, I read a lot of Helen Humphreys, a lot of her nonfiction, and this might be my favorite because it's all about her writing, which I love hearing about her writing process, and about her relationship with her dog Fig, but also her dog Charlotte, and other authors and their relationships with their dogs. So I loved this book.
Yeah.
However, I also loved The Comfort of Crows, A Backyard Year by Margaret Rankel, because it's a nature memoir, an essay collection and I loved it. It was, it's my other favorite thing, nature writing. So it's
Yeah, I want to read both of those
yeah,
because they really are books I think I would absolutely love as well.
yeah, me too. Me too. Okay, number 2, favorite quote. I'll let you go first.
So I didn't have a quote because I had said to you if I had known in advance we were going to do this and not we decided this not like towards the end of the year
Yeah,
anyway. I don't have a favorite quote. So I'm sure you do though, right?
I do, although I only started like really keeping track of quotes towards the end of the year. And most
Mhm.
of the time I won't write them down. I'll just kind of like highlight them in the book. But
Mhm.
this one I wrote down in my journal, my reading journal. And it's a super simple one, but I love the image that it created in my head. And it is from The Pugilist and the Sailor by Nadia Ragbar. And it's just super simple. It is on a night that was pink rather than dark. It just, I remember reading it and I loved, because I love a pink night. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, that quote, I'm like, it's so simple, but like pure, beautiful. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm going
Uh,
with.
It's very you see it immediately in your mind's
Yeah,
eye, right?
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. You
I
know
like
what she's
that.
talking about. And I'm like, it's just a great little chunk of writing. Okay. Happiest book.
So this one, it's funny, it hit me right away. So
Okay.
I am trying to finish the series Anne of Green Gables. So I unfortunately only this year I only read one book, but it was Anne of the Island number 3. And I'll tell you, as soon as I start reading Anne, I have a freaking smile on my face. I just feel so happy about being in her world again. I feel like she's real. I always see Megan Follows as Anne because I love
Hmm.
that particular series. I know there's a newer one out and everything, but that's one I remember. And so it just made me really happy to read it. And no spoilers except that it is a spoiler, I guess. She and Gilbert kind of finally, that's all I'm
Finally,
gonna say. Yeah,
I
that's all I'm
know.
gonna say. So
It's a
it made me
great choice.
so happy. Yes.
Great choice.
Yeah.
Okay. This question made me realize I don't read a lot of happy books. I
Yeah,
do
me
like
too.
I do not read. I'm like reading through. I'm like, oh, there's a romance. I'm like, yeah, it was still a lot about grief. Like I'm like, it wasn't that happy of a book, right? But this one stood out as I went through the list the second time. I'm like, wait a minute, there it is, and it is Inciting Joy: Essays by Ross Gay.
Oh,
That's probably my
absolutely.
happiest.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, he is fantastic. He's
yeah.
absolutely fantastic.
Even though
Yeah.
he tackles some like heavier titles or sorry subjects in his essays, overall you just it's a very hopeful, joyful book,
Yeah.
right?
I agree.
Yeah. Okay, a book that made you cry.
Now, this is funny. I cry easily. So everybody in my life knows I tear up easily, I cry, whatever. I don't care. I get it all out and it's a good thing. But when I was going through my books, I this one really stuck out because I remember the moment that I read this one part toward the end of the book, and I freaking, like, went, "Oh," and then, like, ugly cried for a
Oh
minute, I
no.
swear, and it's a middle grade book called The Eyes and the Impossible, and it's about a bunch of animals living on this island and da, da, da. Anyway, and there was foreshadowing that this was gonna happen earlier in the book, but you kind of forget about it, and then when it happens, oh my god, I'm telling you, I it that one, yeah.
Yeah,
And that's one of the reasons I love kids books so much because sometimes it can just you just feel the emotion of that story, and I don't know that kids necessarily would feel that way, but maybe as an adult, more life experience, you would feel it more, I don't know.
yeah. Nice. Okay, I have like three. I got three. The
Okay.
first one is Blackwood's Blue Sky by Eowyn Ivy. That's about a young single mother who takes her little girl out into the wilds of Alaska. I'm
Oh,
not
yeah.
going to say what makes me cry because it would be a spoiler, but that one had me weepy eyed. As did the memoir by Manel Matani called "May It Have a Happy Ending," which was about her mother, essentially Manel finding her voice through in journalism,
Yeah.
while her mother was physically losing her voice through mouth cancer. That one, that had a that made me cry a few times, but that was a
Yeah.
great book. And then the third one that didn't make me cry, but I had like a visceral reaction as I was reading it and had to put it aside for like after every couple of pages, was the poetry collection The Weeping Degree by Kelly Watt.
Oh, yeah, I remember when you
Yeah,
read that. Yeah, I
yeah.
remember that.
So I'm going to put those three. So yes, happy books. It was difficult for me to find the one that books that make you cry.
Yeah,
Good. I got lots of those.
that's funny.
Okay, most surprising read.
I don't necessarily think things surprise me that much, just because I'm pretty solid about what I want to read and what I'm going to read and what I read, right?
Yeah,
But Jenny's Boy, I because the thing about that book that I loved so much and that was a surprise to me is, first of all, that it was so funny even though it was a tragic story, and that was a surprise, and also it was a surprise too because I said when I was reading it and afterwards too, I think if you've ever had, like, a weirdly dysfunctional family, that you could see yourself in it, and so there were parts of that book that I just thought, "Oh, good lord, I I've lived a little bit of this, not to his level by any stretch." But anyway, I read it and did not expect to laugh, to think it was funny, even though it was tragic, and
mhm,
that because I read a I remember reading a lot of people saying, "Oh, this wasn't funny," and because I think it's supposed to be considered a humorous book, right? And it's people were saying, "Oh, I didn't find it funny at all, and this is terrible, and da da da. And his parents were awful." But to me, I don't know. I that's what I loved about it. It was a surprise to me that I could laugh and love something as tragic as that was, and still get the full range of everything that was happening. Does that make sense?
yep,
So,
yep,
yeah.
totally. Yep. Okay, mine comes from I like to read through award lists, like long lists for awards, which means that sometimes I will hit read books that I might not have picked up otherwise.
Yeah.
And that is one of these times. So I was reading through the Carol Shields Prize for 2025, the long list. And the book was All Fours by Miranda July, which I wasn't sure how it was going to go because I've heard before reading it, had heard people love the book and people also hate the book. So I'm like, this could, and that I'm like, could go either way. And it's a little weird, a little wonky kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I kind of was expecting to not like it and end up really, really enjoying it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that one too. Yeah.
I don't know. It's not a book that I would recommend for it. You know, when you're like, oh, I really love this book, everyone should read it. It's not that. It wasn't that for me, but
Yeah.
just because I don't think it's a book for everyone. But I did really enjoy it and didn't think I would.
Yeah.
Okay, your most read genre.
Well, this one kind of surprised me, to be honest with you, and then when I really started thinking about it, it made complete sense. So mine was so under story graph, the
Yep.
little grade, it said middle grade. So then I thought, well, yeah, I guess I did read a lot of kids' books because I read the whole Narnia series. I read the books. One of my goals was to read about strong, independent girl characters, and I wanted
Yeah.
to read kind of kids' books, classic characters. And so, yeah, that was my first one, and then the second category was classics because I did that as well. But if you had asked me, I wouldn't have thought middle grade
No.
until I really thought about it and went, "Well, yeah, of course, I read a lot of those books in that category." So, yeah.
Hmm. Mine, based on Storygraph, was the most read was literary, which I'm like,
Mhm.
that makes sense. I'm like, yeah, that tracks. The second, followed closely behind, was a historical, which if you ask me, I'm like, I don't read a lot of historical fiction. But you know how on Storygraph you can then click on the tab to see what books are included in that?
Mhm.
And when I
Okay.
go through it, it includes a lot of different genres in that historical. So it had like a
Oh.
couple of what we would think of as traditional historical fictions, but there was also like the Percival Everett book that we read that was
Oh, yeah.
considered historical by. Storygraph, Buffalo Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones. So, like a couple of horror books that I'd read were considered, actually, quite a few of them were considered
Hmm.
historical because as soon as you kind of go out of modern, not even modern times, like present day, decade, they almost consider it historical. Like as long as it's like it's, you know what I mean? If it was in the
Yeah.
1980s, it's historical.
I didn't even know you could click on that. So I'll have to look at
Yes.
that and see what books like fell into my middle grade too. I mean, like I said, I believe that that's what I read, but that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I would have thought horror. To be honest,
Yeah.
I was gonna.
Me too.
That was my guess would have been horror.
Me too.
So,
So the historical, I was kind of like, weird. But then when you
yeah,
look, it's like, oh, okay, I'll give it that. Yeah.
I'll have to check that out.
Okay. Did you have a most read author?
Yeah, but this one's a no-brainer, really. It was C.S. Lewis because I read all 7 books in the Narnia series,
Yeah.
so that was a no-brainer. I figured that right off the bat. So,
Yeah. Mine is a no brainer too. It's Helen Humphreys.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I read 11 of hers by the end of the
yeah.
year. It will be.
Wow. Yes,
I know. I know. Yes.
I love that.
Okay. Oh, favorite reading experience.
Okay, well, I just have to say Narnia because I don't want to keep pushing this point that I read it, because it's been in so many I feel like I've said it in so many podcasts, but I could not there was nothing else that would have fit this category. So for me, it was the experience, and I think the biggest reason it was the experience was because I read the first 2 books, I think, like, in September, and I read The Magician's Nephew, and then I read, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe for the 3rd time because I wanted to then really read them all in a row. But then I ended up reading the other 5, like, picked one up, finished it, picked up the next one. I mean, I just read them straight through. So, I've never done that before with a series, and so that's why I had to include that as my experience because I've never done that before, and it was fabulous because I remembered everything. And usually, you read a book that's part of a series and you kind of forget something and you're like, "What was that about?" And
Yeah.
this way I didn't have any of that. I read it straight through, the 5 straight through, and, yeah, so that's why that was the experience of reading all 5 in a row like that, or the last
Yeah.
5.
Good choice. Good. That's a good one. I like that one. Mine was reading The Comfort of Crows by Margaret Rankle because
Mm.
I know, which I often when I think of a reading experience for me, like my favorite reading experiences, they're linked with a location, like where the location in which I read them. Sometimes add to the
Oh.
whole experience. Like, like I will think of camping trips that we went on 20 years ago, and I'll be like, oh yes, I read this book. Like I somehow the book and the location get linked in my head.
Mhm.
And this one, although the location was not exotic because it was my backyard, but it was during the summer when I could sit outside and read about her backyard while I was sitting in my backyard. And it made me look at different parts of my backyard in a
Oh,
different
nice. Yeah.
right? And it made me also I've started rereading because the book starts at the winter solstice is the first essay, and it goes, chronologically through the year. So I loved reading it so much the first time in one bout during like I think August kind of thing that
Yeah.
I've now started rereading it, but like once a week throughout the next year, so that my reading of each essay will coincide with the
Oh, I love
season
that.
that the essay
That's
was
so
written.
cool.
So that's mine.
That's a great answer because to this day, one of my favorite books is I always say there are certain books I always say are in my top 5, and I think I do actually have 5, but it's A Prayer for Owen Meany by John Irving. It's in my top 5, and I read that when I was in Hungary the first time, and I was there with my grandmother, and we were staying with family, and we went all over the country, and it was the most amazing travel experience of my life, and so that's one of the reasons why I've never wanted to reread it because I always feel like that was such a magical time to read it, was during that whole month of being in Hungary and everything, and so I wanna reread it, and then I go, but I don't wanna sort of
Yeah.
diminish that experience and that memory that I have of it.
Mm, that's beautiful. I like that. Okay, what book do you wish you had buddy read?
And I'm still holding you
Mm-mm.
to
She's
this.
pointing at me. Okay.
I am. I'm holding you to this because I really need to read this book with somebody, and it's short stories, and we could read one short story and then some. So in 2026, I really want to read this with you. It is A Song for Wild Cats. And I thought each of those, and they're kind of almost like long form short stories, but each one of them had so much in them that I just needed to talk about them. And every time you and I buddy read, you point out things that I didn't even think about. So I just feel like I really, really want us to, do a story at a time and read that together because that book, that was almost like a weirdly magical book in a way because each story just stood out. And I did interview the author, Caitlin Galway, and it was funny because I ended up asking her pretty much about each story in the interview, which I wasn't planning to do. But every time as we were talking, I just kept saying, "Oh, and then what about this story? What about this story?" Because each one was just amazing. Like that whole collection was
Yeah.
incredible.
Okay, yeah. I'm going to after, like, so in the beginning of the new year, I'm going to go get a copy of the short stories and we're going to buddy read them together. Yeah.
Yay, thank you.
My answer, I don't have one. I
Oh.
I know, because I don't naturally do buddy reads. Like, while
Mhm.
I was going through, I went through my list, I think like 2 or 3 times, and I was like, I can't think of anything. But then I realized it's because I don't naturally have that wish to do
Mhm.
buddy reads. I
Yeah.
enjoy them when you and I do them together. We've done them, I think, a few times, a couple of
Mhm.
Percival Everett's and a couple other books, and I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
But it's not something that I naturally think of to do.
Yeah.
So in the end, I'm like, I think I just had to go with like not applicable. But
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's fair.
okay, scariest slash creepiest book.
Well, everybody probably, if you know me, you've listened to this podcast at all, you know I do not have an answer for this because I do not read scary books. So that's my I'm going to pass
Not
on that one.
applicable.
Yeah, not applicable. I'll pass that on to
Yeah.
you.
So not surprising, this was like one of my like questions. So mine is Tear by Erica McKean, which that book freaked, and I've read a lot of horror this year. I would like to read more going into 2026, but that one was one of the books that I was like, and I read it during the day. And I remember one scene in particular. I was out in the sunlight at daylight on my patio, reading and going, if such and such happens in the next page, I am going to lose it. And it did happen, and I did lose it. That book freaked me out.
Yeah,
I also loved it. Like at the same time, I'm like, it's one that I would like to reread. Like, but that was one creepy ass book in sections.
that's
Loved
funny.
it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Okay, favorite fictional character.
This was really easy for me because this was the first answer I had in my head, and then I went back and looked at all my books and went, "Yep, by a mile," to be honest. It's Larkin Beatty from Quilting of Scars by Lucy E.M. Black. I'm telling you, Larkin will be with me for the rest of my life. Kind of like Owen Meany, right? Owen
Yeah.
Meany was such a pivotal character in my reading life. And I just feel like Larkin Beatty is the same way because his story, I just can't let go of his story completely. And if you haven't read it, I also said it's kind of like a tragedy in the old literary classic sense of a tragedy. So when you read it, it kind of gave me that same sense when I read Ethan Frome
Mhm.
by Edith Wharton. It gave me that sort of feeling like I read it and that it was written a long time ago. She Lucy Black is amazing at writing that way. And so anyway, read A Quilting of Scars. Absolutely amazing if you want a memorable character, Larkin Beatty.
Yeah. That is a great name. Also, there's some symmetry within names, Owen Meany and Larkin Beatty.
Oh
It's like,
yeah.
I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
they don't sound the same, but they kind of do at the same time. And
Yeah.
I love symmetry, so
Well, and it's really funny too because you know how you log into something and you have to use a username or whatever, and I've been trying to use different usernames. So my
for
latest one is
you.
I use Larkin all the time now.
Oh, yeah, because it's a great name.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about
Uh,
you?
Mine, I feel like mine is kind of a cheat because in that, okay, so it is Ruth from Machine Without Horses by Helen Humphreys. But Ruth, who is a fictional character, is based on an actual person who is Megan Boyd, a salmon fly dresser in Scotland in the early 1900s. So that's why I feel like it's kind of a cheat
It's a
because
twofer. It's a
it's a
twofer.
twofer. Because I'm like, she's like, Megan is a real person, but Ruth was like the fictionalized Megan. In that book, it's split into two parts. Part one, you kind of get Megan's story a little bit, but with more in that how a Helen Humphreys as a writer wants to approach telling this story of an actual person, and then part two is the fictionalized story of Ruth, and I can't remember the other character. And I
Yeah.
love Ruth. I just love the idea of this woman who's just flying, or well, I think they called it dressing, a salmon fly dresser in Scotland in our little hut, just like making a career, a life, and then falling in love with another woman. Just
Yeah, yeah,
love
yeah.
Ruth. And she's an amazing dancer too. Like I can just see
Yeah.
her dancing. I love Ruth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I all of the books you're talking about, I really remember your description of these books. So that's
Yeah.
really awesome. Yep.
Okay. Favorite setting or location?
This one was really easy for me because I love this book, and this was one of my mood reads. I just discovered it. I don't know if somehow I came across the author and I read the little thing and decided to read the book. Anyway, it is The Road to Heaven by Alexis Stefanovich Thompson, and it is a mystery. It's a Patrick Bird number
Mm,
one Patrick Bird mystery, and number two is coming out, I think, in the spring, I think is what he said. Anyway, it's 1960s Toronto. And when I was reading it, I thought there were still places in Toronto. I mean, the places are still there, and some of the places are gone now. But it just was such a visceral read because I could picture everything he was saying, and sometimes I would look things up to see where he was, like where the character was in the actual physical location, and it was really fun to read that.
yeah.
And I, it just made me. The first time I ever went to Toronto was like in I think the late 70s. And so this was the 60s, but anyway, I kind of had that, it gave me that memory of just being in Toronto the very first time, and it's definitely a character in the story for sure.
Very cool. I would not have guessed that one because I forgot about
Yeah.
that book until you mentioned it.
Yeah. Can I
Um,
just say really quickly, I
yeah,
did have a part 2. I did have a second one kind of
yeah,
that, but then I changed my mind because it's the one Arctic Predator, which
mm,
was that nonfiction story about that teacher that abused
yeah,
a bunch of indigenous kids in the north. And I almost picked that because I've always loved reading about the north and people who live and thrive in the north. But honestly, I said to myself, you know what, if I want to think about something that was positive and good, that's why I ended up changing. I mean, I picked A Road to Heaven but I want to really recommend Arctic Predator if you want a compelling, well told story about real life event that wasn't really publicized in Canada, throughout Canada, when it was happening or even after it happened. And she's written this great account of that. But I just wanted to throw that in there. So,
yeah. Mine, I feel like mine's very uncreative. I tried to
okay.
come up with, but when I was going through my books, so I reread Still Life, which is the first book in the
Oh, yeah.
Armand Gamache series by Louise Penny, and I was just like, frigate, it needs to be Three Pines because if I could live in a place, even with all the murder and sometimes mayhem, it would
Love it.
it would still be Three Pines. So it has to be Three Pines in the middle of Quebec or eastern townships of Quebec, um, from Still Life by Louise Penny, or the whole series. A
Yeah.
second runner up, I did a runner up too, would be Alaska in Black Woods Blue Sky by Aowen Ivy because I love any book set in Alaska. If I see a
Hmm.
book set in Alaska, I'm going to grab it.
Yeah.
Never been, but
Yeah. That's so funny. You know, it's really funny because I read. Sarah Paretsky had her V.I. Warshawski series. She published a book. Actually, it was last year, but I read it this year.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. It's set in Chicago. And I believe that I think I live there. I know all the characters. They're all my friends. And so that's always, and I thought, no, that's too easy. But it's also true. But it
Yeah.
really is true because that is one of my favorite settings. I love to read her and about Chicago. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, we have one more to finish off. Your first and last book read of 2025.
Okay. Well, you inspired my first read of the year. I don't know if
Oh,
you remember this. Harriet the Spy,
oh,
because
right.
that was my nod to my goal of reading about girl characters, independent, feisty girl characters. So I started with Harriet the Spy, and we are recording this just a tad before the end of the year. And I am currently reading Northwoods, which was that one that I had been wanting to read forever. And so I am currently reading it. I'm going to assume that it will be my last book of 2025.
Okay.
So, because we're a little bit ahead.
Yeah. So I'm going to do the same thing. My first book was actually Hello Beautiful by Anne Napolitano.
Oh, yeah.
That one was inspired, which I did love that book. But the reason I read it first was because a friend had lent it to me like a year ago, and I had not returned it and was feeling guilty. And I'm like, I just got to read this book and return it.
That's
Anyways, I
funny.
end up loving it. So that was my first one read. And
Yeah.
I'm going to predict that the last one read, because I'm reading one book now. So we're recording on like the 26th. So I feel like I'm going to finish that one up soon and I'll have time for one more. And that last one will be The Haunting of Modesto O'Brien by Britt Griffin, which I have not started yet. So I
Okay.
think it's like a historical fiction / horror kind of thing. So yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's. I can't tell you anything else about it, but I will in 2026.
There you go.
Yeah,
Yeah. Same here. Same here.
yeah. Okay, so before we sign off, how was your reading year? Like, how would you sum it up?
My year was really odd because I had goals that I wanted to accomplish. I think overall I didn't accomplish much of what I wanted to. And also, just to be fully transparent, my mother was ill midway through the year, so my reading really did not. I had a lot less time to read than I normally would, and my brain was not
Yeah,
functioning to a place where I could read. So I would say I look forward to being a better reader, and that means better in my mind of what I'd like to be as a reader, a better reader, and accomplish a lot more and just have a lot more fun because I do have some ideas for the upcoming year. So anyway, so yes, I hope to do better or have the ability to do better in 2026. So how about you?
well, not even ability, because it's not up to you. It's just sometimes your priorities
Yeah.
in life just switch, and you have to
Yep.
like. That's all you can do, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? I had a really good year. I had a really good year of reading. I don't know if I looked at my overall rating on Storygraph, because they'll show that to you. I don't know if I am good at picking books that I enjoy, but maybe I'm also just getting really easy. I think I'm an easy reader. Like, if
Hmm.
I like finish a book, then obviously I enjoyed it to some extent.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's true.
but even aside from that, I'm like, I had a good year. I had a
Yeah.
good year. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay. Anything else you want to say?
No, I think that's it. I think 2025, I cannot believe again, it's already like almost at the end here,
Yeah,
but gosh, time flies.
I know. I know.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'm glad I got to spend it reading with you.
Absolutely
Yeah,
ditto. Yay.
it was
Yes, I
awesome.
agree.
Yeah. And with
Absolutely.
all of you too, of course. So if you guys have any answers to like any of the superlatives that we answered, we would love to hear them in the comments or through a DM, an email, however you want to respond to let us know. Even if you just want to tell us your favorite book of the year, go for it.
Yep, sounds good.
Yep.
Mhm.
And happy reading. Thank you for joining us on our bookish journey. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing Canada Reads American Style wherever you listen. You can connect with the podcast and Rebecca on Instagram at Canada Reads American Style. and with Tara at On a Branch Reads. Until next time, keep reading.